Stiglitz is our guest. New book out, The $3 Trillion War. We had him on with us last January. We also interviewed him here in Austin for the TV show. And he said that within 2.5 years, if the global financial order did not make some serious reforms, we would have the hyperinflation that could lead to a worldwide depression. And you can go to the website, Infowars.com, if you want to read that article from last year. He is a Nobel Prize winner in economics. He is a former World Bank chief economist. If I tried to go over his entire bio, it would take hours, but you can just Google Joseph Stiglitz. He's written quite a few best-selling books as well. The new one, The $3 Trillion War, and that's just how much it costs now, not to mention our good name worldwide. And so I really appreciate Joseph Stiglitz joining us. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Nice to be here.
You were here about 1 year and 4 months ago, and you laid out in 20 minutes a forecast of what indeed happened, but we've gone about 90% into your forecast. I'm hoping the rest of the 10% isn't correct and we don't have a depression in another 2 years. What do you see happening?
Well, actually, the prospects of our economy right now are not very good. To some extent, what happens depends on what the American government and other governments do. But right now, even the IMF, and I've often disagreed with the IMF, but right now I think they're on target. They are saying that the American economy is going to be very weak, not only this year, but next year, and it won't be until 2010 before the economy really starts to show a recovery. Part of the problem is that the current administration has been doing too little, too late. What they've been doing is not well designed. And the fundamentals of economic policy are that it takes a while before any action that you take has full effect. So if this administration isn't going to do anything, it's going to be until the next administration comes into office, and that means it will we won't begin to get the right medicine until the beginning of 2009, and that means we're talking about late 2009, 2010, before we start seeing really a solid recovery.
Now, a lot of people throwing around the term depression. A lot of top economists have. You've used that term before. A depression, I guess, would be...
I would be a little bit cautious about using that term. I think that we tend to, reserve that for the Great Depression, or for the kind of situation that was in the island of Java in 1997,
a breakdown, a collapse, starving. But I mean, a recession, you're the Nobel Prize-winning economist, but tell me if I'm wrong, a recession is 2 continual quarters of zero growth, and then a depression would be how many quarters?
Well, they don't actually. We usually think of a depression as really very strong negative growth for an extended period of time. But it doesn't make any difference. The fundamental question is whether the U.S. economy is going to be performing below its potential for an extended period of time. And, on that, I think there is almost unanimity now among economists that we're looking towards an extended period of the economy operating below its potential. And there's a very simple reason, and part of the reason why there's a little bit of discussion of depression is that the fundamental reason for this downturn is very similar to that of the Great Depression: weaknesses in the financial system. The losses that the banks are incurring, the financial system incurring, are quite literally mind-boggling. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. We've seen lots of write-offs. And the IMF estimates the total amount to be nearly $1 trillion.
And then there's that cascading effect as you have the bubble popping, everybody leveraged out in the Western world, more and more housing crises with subprimes, more and more of all these instruments that are AAA rated. I mean, it's all leading towards, you said here a year ago that, you talked about the term depression. Now I guess things are so serious you don't want to use that term. What I'm trying to understand here is how we could get out of this, where you see this, where do you see it going with the current management and the different jockeying groups that are out there at the helm of central banks versus where you'd like to see it go?
Yeah, well, the basic thing is that what happens to the financial sector is not unconnected. It's very closely connected with the real sector. Wall Street and Main Street are very closely linked. If, as is what's happening, the financial sector is having serious economic problems, it has no choice but to start reining in credit. If it's not making loans, individuals, households, firms can't do the investment that they would otherwise have done. As they cut back their economic activity, the whole economy slows down, and the whole thing just sort of unravels. And that's what we're beginning to see go our economy going through. Now, you are absolutely right, and I've been talking about this actually now for several years. It was so clear that we faced a housing bubble, and that housing bubble was sustaining a consumption boom. Savings in the United States plummeted to zero, some quarters negative. It was clear that that was not sustainable. What was going on? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's actually related to my book, The $3 Trillion War, where I argue that, in fact, there's not two issues in this campaign, but one, the war and the economy are very closely connected. The war was having a very negative effect on the economy for a variety of reasons that I spell out. The Fed said we have to cover it up. Our job is to keep the economy going, and they did it in a very short-sighted way. They let loose a flood of liquidity and loose regulations, and what happened was it did cover up the negative effects of the war. But we were living on borrowed money and borrowed time, and a day of reckoning had to come. We couldn't predict when it was going to come, but we knew that it was going to come.
So in layman's terms, how bad is it going to get? Because I've had the head of the New York business school on. I've had all these other former Treasury policy heads. I've had them, I've had the shadow stats people on about what real inflation is at like 15% now. Look at the food, look at the oil, look at the dollar plunging. And then Bush is out giving speeches saying we're not even in a recession. He said that 2 days ago at the SPP meeting, on the North American integration. I mean, it's just... And the old cliche of it's a recession if your neighbor's out of work, it's a depression if you're out of work. I mean, if half the Social Security check value's been cut in the last 5 years, compounded, and believe me, I know I got families on Social Security. If people are out of work, if I'm seeing more homeless people, if there's houses going, all over the place going under, hell, this is just the beginning, Mr. Stiglitz. How bad's it going to get?
Worse. We expect now, at least in the next year, about 2.2 million Americans will lose their homes, and with that, much of their life savings. Many of these will lose their entire life savings. The forecast is that housing prices, already gone down 10%, are probably going to go down another 10 to 20%. When that happens, we're not sure how many houses will be underwater, but numbers 14, 15 million households will have mortgages exceeding the value of their house. We're in for very likely a very bad time. Now, the president is trying to push the problems of the economy onto the next administration, just like he pushed the problem of the war onto the next administration. I think he'd hoped that the whole bubble wouldn't break until after November 2008, but it began to unravel in August 2007. Like so many other things in the last few years, they haven't gone quite according to plan. The big uncertainty, as I say, is what will be done.